I'm Kylie Bartell.
And I'm Alicia Bradburn, and we're the co-hosts of the Horseman's Hot Seat.
The Horseman's Hot Seat is an opportunity for us to get to know the clinicians at Horse Expo on a bit of a deeper level and not only find out how they grew in their journey of horsemanship, but get to know them on a bit more of a personal note too.
So here today with us, we have Doug Mills, which we've had the honor of speaking with last year at Horse Expo. We're so excited to be back with him today.
Yes.
And just give you a little snapshot, an appetizer, if you will, for who Doug is and why you want to come and see him at Horse Expo this year. So Doug, we'll hand it off to you.
So if you don't mind, Doug, could you just, for the folks at home who might not know as much about you, could you introduce yourself and tell us what is your mission in the horse industry?
So yeah, I'm Doug Mills, as you already know, lifelong horse trainer clinician. I've been doing it my whole life, as long as I can remember. Moved to Canada in the early 90s, and I was horse trainer on a ranch prior to that. We had a ranch in Utah, so I was training for the public from the time I was 10 years old. And typically, if you get paid for it, you're professional. So they started paying me when I was 10 years old, and I never looked back. But I was only training horses, and I never had to pass them on to their clients. I mean, I just put miles on them, and on the ranch, I found that you get away with murder with a horse once he has a job. You know, you point him up a mountain, and by the end of the day, I'd be healing calves on him, just because that's the nature of the game, right? But when I moved to Canada, it's a whole different ball game. I moved up here, like I said, early 90s, and started training, teaching people and giving lessons at my parents' riding stable, and that sent me down a whole nother avenue, a whole nother journey that I had to figure out, teaching people. Number one, I was way too shy to be able to do it. My friends back home can't even believe that that's what I do for a living, because I wouldn't talk about nothing. I could show you what I could do with a horse, and that's about as far as it went.
So the second part of the question is, what do you hope Horse Expo attendees take away from Horse Expo this year from you?
Well, I always like to, my first is my mission in the horse statement, or sorry, in the world. Like, my mission in the horse world is to teach teachers to teach people how to find the horse they never knew. And the horse I never knew was after I started trying to build a program to teach people. I discovered that horse I never knew. And leading up to that, I was taking, lots of clinics and watching lots of videos from industry leaders at the time. But when I was trying to use those exercises that I knew, I had success with those exercises. When I tried to present those exercises to the people who show up clinics, they were really green riders, usually had a tough horse. For some reason, they go hand in hand. But I couldn't use them lessons, so I had to kind of invent lessons on my own that I thought would achieve the same results. And from that, 15, 20 years after the beginning of teaching people, I found the horse I never knew. And that's that willing horse that does what everybody talks about and everybody wants, that unicorn horse. But I didn't find it from traditional lessons. I'd done it strictly from the passion to try to help people, get along with a troubled horse, because my passion was, as I got older, was performance horses. I loved the reining, working cow horse, roping, anything to do with rodeo, just to get horses to do them cool maneuvers that are just, I was addicted to that. So I was trying to build a program for that, but to pay the bills, my heart went out to the people that I was trying to help, these troubled horses and these troubled people with these troubled horses. So, but the horse I never knew, when I found that, it was about the same technique it takes to make one willing to go do a sliding stop or roll back or go over a 6-foot fence or any of those things, work a cow, is the same steps it takes to become safe and willing for grandmas and grandkids. That's my mission, is be able to teach the teachers how to teach the teachers to achieve that result. Because it's deep, but it's very easy. It's deep because it takes some time. I only use 3 lessons to teach the horse all these things I'm talking about, 3 concepts, multiple lessons, but they all fall under the same concept. We've touched a little bit about this before, girls, when we was in the hot seat last year at the expo. But and what I want people to come away from by watching is that, yeah, I am different. It's so it's awesome to hear that, some of those same transformational passions and motivations that takes us from where we are. And I always say that your current perception of horsemanship has to do with your past experiences, right?
Yeah.
Where everybody thinks, and like he was talking about having your heart didn't feel good about the things you were doing. And it was kind of like that with me because I started so young. I could get a ranch horse to pack me all day and go through some rugged country and chase a cow down. And even when he was wringing wet and I was wringing wet, we still got around the cow, and he knew his job was to get around the cow. So the next day, the getting around the cow became much easier. Like he put more heart into it right in the beginning because it was less work than going longer. He knew when we started after the cow, we're going to get the cow. That's all there is to it. Otherwise, we got to ride 3 hours the next day and go after that same cow that has now lost us. So it's even, and rough country that I grew up in too, girl. Like it was ledgy, rocky, high, and with, them cows can get pretty wild pretty quick. So I learned, like I said, by giving a horse a job, he filled in the gaps of the training. I was naive and young. I didn't know anything about it, but I could get a horse to do some incredible things for me. And I knew what it took to get there. And then some of the things that I was learning in the performance horse world didn't feel good to the heart. I didn't like the constant grind. I didn't like the mindless circles. I didn't like the drilling them over maneuvers after maneuvers of, I could just feel, I knew the horse, I could see the horse change. They went from, collection was another big one. Collection is so important in English or Western in all of our disciplines to have, but how we achieve that collection is a really, really different idea of perception depending on your past experience. And if
Absolutely.
I wouldn't have had those previous experiences of knowing my horse well enough to know, and it's pretty simple to see. Like when your horse meets you at the gate every day, and then day 2 of you working on collection, he sees you and goes the far into the pen. Something I'm doing about collection, and it's always the beginning steps. Right. And that's what I always talk about. That's what I want people to know at the expo about me is I'm different. And the reason I didn't try to be different, I was just trying to create a simple path for green riders to get through a tough horse. And I had to go back early enough in the program that I couldn't find any teaching on that.
Yeah.
So that's, I'll ask you girls about your mentors now. When it comes to pecking order, what can you tell me about the pecking order that you've learned from your past mentors?
What do you mean exactly by that, Doug?
The pecking order, like everything you know about it, how, what it is, how it's established, how it relates to training, how we use it in our everyday, or do we use it in our everyday life with a horse? Because I'm different in that than I found. And that's a horse I never knew. Until I understood that, I never found the horse I never knew.
Yeah, it's funny you should touch on that because that was a real keystone, like a turning point in my horsemanship, because I believe I actually misunderstood my first mentors on what the pecking order meant. Like I heard leadership and I kind of went back to what I did before with horses was you got to be the boss. The horse has to know that you're boss, but it was the spirit and intention that I went about that was not the most effective. I had a bit more of a mean and mad, as Pat Hurley would say, feel about me than just like being the leader that I would want to follow. So it went from my horse, of course, was the mirror. So it went from him looking like kind of a soldier that was being put through the paces and resentful look in his face to like actually connecting when I started to understand the pecking order more as to horses. It makes most sense because they have a pecking order that I do need to be the leader. I do need to have their respect, for safety reasons, all sorts of reasons. But it was a different, I still could respect that horse and he could respect me. It was mutual, but there was an understanding that the leadership meant that I was going to keep him safe, that I had my eyes on things that I would think for him. For the most part, like I wasn't going to put him in a dangerous situation as much as I could avoid. So I guess the pecking order means to me that I do need to be at the top of the pecking order, but it's the way that you go about that. And the feel about you.
That's so true. to me, what I learned about the pecking order is I learned the thing that was an eye opener to me is because I heard the same lines. Leadership goes in line with pecking order. And I don't see that today at all. Like I
Mhm.
find I'm not even close to establishing leadership that game. But to me, the pecking order has to be established. That's something I'd never heard from anybody. And how do you establish the pecking order? Yes, it comes from movement. It starts with movement, but the pecking order is not established. To me, when it's established, like I watch out in this herd of, we got 6, 8 pins of 6 horses in each pin, and you can watch the harmony in there. There's no fighting going on. They move each other like part in the sea, right? Just with a subtle, and they move around, but it's not like that in the beginning. But how it's established is another word that I never heard either one of you say that almost like voodoo in the industry is submission.
Mm-hmm.
Submission. I don't, people don't like it, so I've used all kinds of words. Acceptance is another word I like, but it starts right from the Bible. It's in the Bible. It's submission, right? And if they would have submitted to God early with Moses, they wouldn't have been wandering in the desert for 40 years, complaining that they every night anyway. But submission, the thing about submission, I heard a guy told me the other day that submission is something that can't be taken. It has to be given.
Yeah.
Right? So that is really cool what Josh said about you when you're fighting for something, you can't take it. So you don't have to be the strong arm in that relationship with a horse. You just don't go whip on them to get that submission. They'll never give it to you. I've seen trainers and people chase a horse around, whipping his butt, point and whip, them kind of situation, outside turn or inside turn only, and really get deliberate about what they're doing. And I got to demand his respect, and he can't be looking out and those kind of things. But when he honors me that I'm going to send him out from the pecking order, he's going to put his nose to the ground, and that's submission. The second, and I can't do that with pressure. Right.
Totally.
And it's so clear to see what used to take me sometimes 30 minutes to get it on a horse that I called contaminated before he'd put his head down. Now I can do it on a contaminated horse in 2 or 3 seconds, right? Or a little longer sometimes. But it's the first thing I teach him is to move his feet, and he needs to get a release for moving his feet.
Right.
And he's always going to try, if you understand their survival instincts, it's fight, flight, do the opposite, and conserve energy. Those are the big 4 that I'm focused on all the time. So when I ask him to go left and I release because he got sensitive. He moved off sensitive pressure. And then as soon as I released, he tried to go back the other way. And then I resent him for that decision to go the wrong way. So I'm addressing that survival instinct as well. And this goes into the leadership thing, right? So I haven't yet established the pecking order. Therefore, I'm a long ways away from establishing leadership.
Right.
When I send him again to the left, and it might take multiple times, as soon as that horse decides to go to the left, and I got a cool video on YouTube of that. It's 2 yearling fillies that have never been touched, and it's their first send, and I'm on the back of a saddle horse sending that and having that conversation. And they both surrender to me and submit by putting their head down, and I reward for that, but they still don't surrender to the direction. They try to keep going back to the right. And as soon as they surrender, you can watch them learn that. They quit going back to the left, because every time they turn, or sorry, to the right, every time they turn back to the right, I restart the send, but I release as soon as they'd move. And by doing that, they got more and more sensitive over the 5-10 minutes it took. Well, less than that. I think it was 6 minutes that it took to get them to establish a direction and establish sensitive movement. Finished. The end game is what I would call the establishment of the pecking order, is when I lifted my hand to threaten to send them, and it took like 30 seconds to get, asking, and they never moved 1 foot, but they both put their head down, and I quit that for that and went the other direction. Now that whole thing was wrapped up in a package, if you will, about submission. Our first conversation was about submission.
Amazing. Awesome. Beauty.
That is different. You won't hear that from anybody. If you have, they stole it from me, or somebody I haven't seen yet. And it's taken me a lot of years to get that, but.
Right. Awesome.
I really love that, Doug, like that, because I feel like you said, it's almost like submission could be a dirty word, or like bring about images of cruelty and things like that. But the way that you said that, like, I love your reference to people wandering in the desert, like with Moses, and like how if we would submit, it's like submitting to something good.
Mhm.
you know,
Hmm.
rather than a negative take on it.
Totally.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna just bring it full circle here. I know we've had a lot of amazing parts of the conversation I didn't even anticipate, and so thank you, Doug, for bringing some other questions back our way, which is always fun. Before we let you sign off, though, I'm just gonna maybe ask for just kind of that summary, kind of to bring us home. If you could reiterate for me, kind of in a summary way, what do you hope that Horse Expo attendees will take away from watching you at Horse Expo this year?
That they will see that it's possible to find that horse they never knew. And it's, they might have to think outside the box a little bit, but they will be able to see that happen time and time again with the horse that I draw for the trainer challenge. It'll be the
Yeah.
first that I do, and it'll be the last thing that I do. And it'll be what I do throughout the whole training program. So, yeah,
Mhm.
So that's awesome. Yeah, we can't wait to see that. We're so excited for that showdown.
awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, for being willing to jump on and share a little more of your story and your perspective with all the people that are excited to come to Horse Expo this year and with us. So yeah,
And for flipping things around.
yeah, that was
That
fun.
was fun.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Doug.
Have a good
Bye,
Thanks.
Doug.